The old saying, "a thing of beauty is a joy forever," is what I always think when I look at them. I can't imagine being in a world without disease prevention, being in a world without a way to clean yourself, take a bath, wash your hands. Nothing available to you outside of your home that was civilized, nowhere to go buy anything, do anything. These objects must have represented just the most sophisticated way of just being who you were, at displaying your wealth in a way that you shared it with others. As a really young girl, I'd say around 4 or 5 years old, I was just heavily influenced by a great aunt, and she would take me to the city market in Charleston when I was really that young, and I used to see silver and porcelain and all kinds of things out on the tables for sale. And I realized that I'd seen the same kind of pieces in my aunt's home and in my own home, and I was drawn to the stories of the people who owned the pieces, because my aunt explained to me that they were made from melted money, that they were relics of a bygone era, and that they really meant something to the people that owned them because they put their name on them, the dates on them, and to me they embody a culture that I believe is leaving us too soon. I have a very interesting job. I really consider it a pleasure instead of a job. I lecture about 200 times a year all over the United States on the Southern tabletop, with silver in particular in mind. I take the stories of the South when it was a very poor area into the antebellum times when it became more wealthy, and I show how the silver objects were used as a means of portraying civility in an uncivil world. The really interesting thing that you can learn from an object, number one, is that in the time periods before the Industrial Revolution, the objects were used as tools. They used them every single day. They weren't decorations until the Victorian period when they could be made en masse. So if you look at, for instance, I have some silver that belonged to John C. Calhoun. It's just 2 little spoons. But John C. Calhoun traveled with these spoons everywhere that he went because silver was a way of keeping your mouth clean and keeping germs away from you. Both of them really signify that, number one, he was able to travel with these pieces and go into unclean environments and not catch the diseases of the day, which is a really big deal given that that was a way that most people succumbed, and passed away. You can also look at wedding dates that are on pieces of silver, because silver was often passed through families from generation to generation. I have a lot of pieces that have multiple dates on them. One will say 1750, and then there's a later date on the other side that says 1825 or 30. And those objects often tell the story of how the wealth associated with silver was passed from generation to generation in a real subtle, civilized way, so that it kept the wealth within the family. As remember, most of the early pieces were made from melted money or alloy similar to it. Most of the things that I enjoy doing are sort of interrelated. When I look at an object, a silver object, I am more fascinated with the person who made it than I am really with the way the object appears, and it's of course more than with its monetary value. So for me, artistic expression is a really big deal. I appreciate the artist and their ability to pull the natural world into an object that became their singular expression of beauty. So for me, I like to paint, I like to draw. I really immerse myself more in the artistic world of these objects that I love more than I do the history specifically of the period of time. I think it's amazing that someone could sit in a room and craft a silver teapot that we still love 300 years later. To me, when I look at any object, the first thing I want to know is who crafted it and why. And I take such care with that information because I really want to preserve that and pass it to the next generation. I want to be able to take everything that I know about an object and make sure the next generation knows about it, so that it doesn't just disappear into the walls of history and never be talked about again. To me, the most exciting thing is to look at an object that belongs to someone else, tell them about it, and see the smile that occurs on their face because all of a sudden they know who owned it in their family. The mystery of why it was in their grandmother's thing suddenly becomes very crystal clear, and all these things are interrelated and tied together. And it helps, it's a very buoyant feeling when you understand the object that's in front of you meant so much more than the sum total of its physical worth. It's a really remarkable thing, and I have a joyful job because I get to do this for people and for myself all the time. So for me, I'm just how it's passing through. I'm just the vessel to take it to the next generation.